She's one of the greatest icons in American entertainment history. The name Barbra Streisand has become synonymous with timeless ballads, unforgettable roles, and a rare sweep of major awards: Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Today, Streisand resides in a $100 million estate in Malibu, where every rose bush and every stone wall was chosen by her own hand. But behind the spotlight was a chorus of criticism that once followed her every step: too ambitious, difficult to work with, not feminine enough. What many didn't see was the child behind those labels. A girl raised without a father, in a modest third-floor apartment where dreams were never spoken out loud. A girl who only dared to sing at night, when everyone else was asleep. Then, at 13, in a recording few thought would matter, her voice broke through and everything changed. Barbra Streisand didn't just sing to be heard, she sang to rewrite her own destiny. If you believe in stories that rise above judgment, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts below, because this journey is just beginning. No one applauded the first time she sang. It was just a test recording, made at the age of 13 in a worn-down little studio. But in that quiet moment, young Barbra Streisand, thin, overlooked, and underestimated, found something her childhood had never given her a way out. Barbra Streisand was born on April 24, 1942 in Brooklyn, New York, to a working-class Jewish family. Her father, Emanuel Streisand, was a high school teacher known for being calm, literary, and deeply devoted to education, but he never got the chance to pass those values on to his daughter. When Barbra was just 15 months old, her father died from complications after a seizure. The loss shattered the family. Her mother, Diana, had to set aside every personal hope and take a full-time job as a secretary, raising 2 children in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, though their basic needs were met. The home was heavy with silence. Diana wasn't a nurturing woman, and she made little effort to hide her doubts about her daughter's artistic dreams. Barbra grew up quietly, without encouragement, and without anyone to guide her. When Diana remarried, Barbra's stepfather brought with him a colder chapter. He didn't hit her, but the emotional distance, his sharp words. His dismissive looks left a lasting impression. To him, she was barely there. Barbra escaped into her own world, spending hours glued to the radio, training her voice by mimicking recordings of Judy Garland and Ella Fitzgerald. She didn't have a room of her own, most nights. She practiced after everyone had gone to bed. Her first turning point came at age 13. One afternoon, while accompanying her mother to a recording studio, she was asked to try singing a simple folk tune. No one expected much. But as Barbra began to sing, the audio engineer, midway through jotting down notes, suddenly looked up. He said nothing. No one did. But in that instant, Barbra realized her voice might be the only thing strong enough to carry her beyond this life. School, however, was another kind of battleground. With her unconventional nose and distinct appearance, Barbra was often teased. She didn't stand out, no close friends, no athletic talent, and no one would have guessed she was destined for stardom. But at a school talent show when she was 15, Barbra stepped onto the stage with all the quiet belief she'd kept hidden. When the song ended, the auditorium fell completely silent. What they had just heard wasn't just a performance. It was a silent vow, spoken in music. The journey from that Brooklyn apartment to the lights of Broadway didn't begin with luck. It began with a child no one expected anything from, who chose, instead, to make the world listen. What chance does an unknown girl from Brooklyn, no money, no connections, no conventional beauty, have in a world that was never meant for her? In the late 1950s, while Elvis Presley was shaking up America and Judy Garland still reigned as the gold standard of female vocalists, an 18-year-old girl from Brooklyn packed everything she owned into a worn-out suitcase. She carried little more than a few cheap dresses, a notebook filled with song lyrics, and one silent promise: I will make them listen. Barbra arrived in Greenwich Village, the smoky, dimly lit heart of struggling artists, where young singers performed for little more than a cold sandwich or a free plate of spaghetti. She took the stage in sidewalk bars, where patrons talked over their meals and barely noticed the skinny girl in a frizzy sweater with tangled hair. When she sang, a few would set down their forks, but there were nights when she barely got through the first line before whispers filled the room. Who is she? What's with that nose? She was rejected not for her voice, but for how she looked. Not pretty, not right for TV, too Jewish. The words were sharp, cold, and unforgiving, but Barbra didn't walk away. Each night, she stood before the mirror learning to hold her breath, control her gaze, and meet her own reflection without flinching. No one taught her how. She learned through sheer will driven by a hunger to prove she belonged. Then one evening in 1960 at the Blue Angel nightclub, a place where jazz standards and Broadway tunes drifted through the air, Barbra stepped up and sang an old ballad, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? No one expected it to hush the room, but when she finished, the entire place was silent. No clinking of silverware, just wide eyes, and among them, a Broadway casting director. 1 week later, Barbra landed a role in I Can Get It For You Wholesale. At just 20, she made her Broadway debut and earned a Tony nomination. The girl they once called unattractive had become the talk of New York theater, but that was just the beginning. In 1963, the Barbra Streisand album was released. No one expected a debut to win 3 Grammys, including Album of the Year. The same critics who once turned her away were now giving her standing ovations, from cold sandwiches in rented rooms. Barbra moved on to stages with red velvet curtains and golden lights, and later, to a multi-million-dollar Malibu estate, where the walls gleam with her Grammys, her Oscar, her Tony, and her Emmy. Step by step, she built an empire powered by nothing more than her voice. There are voices that make you pause, and then there are voices that make an entire generation stop and listen. Barbra Streisand was both. After years of rejection, Broadway finally gave Barbra her first true spotlight. Her role as Fanny Brice in Funny Girl 1964 wasn't just a performance, it was her chance to turn every past insult into strength. When the film version hit theaters in 1968, she stunned Hollywood despite never having attended a formal acting class. That year at the Oscars, Barbra walked confidently onto the stage in a shimmering gown, as if the moment had always belonged to her. She didn't give a long speech, just smiled and said, "Hello." Gorgeous. A line that was bold, funny, and a signal to the world a new era had begun. Her talent didn't end with singing or acting. Barbra wrote, produced, and directed fields where women were often overlooked. In 1983 with Yentl, she became the first woman to win a Golden Globe for Best Director, forcing the industry to confront its own biases. But perhaps the most remarkable thing is her consistency. Over 6 decades, Barbra Streisand never faded. Every album charted high. Every tour sold out even well into her 60s. Her 2006 tour grossed over $92 million, making it one of the highest-earning tours of the year. Only a handful in history hold what Streisand does. EGOT status: Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. It's more than just an accolade, it's proof that her talent defies genres and generations. Barbra didn't just succeed, she redefined success in her own bold, uncompromising way. Some houses are built to live in. Barbra Streisand's home was built to hold memories, dreams, and decades of life under one roof. When the spotlight dims, Barbra doesn't chase parties or headlines, she retreats into a world she designed herself, where beauty and memory live side by side. Set on a hillside overlooking the Pacific in Malibu, surrounded by soft ocean breeze and golden afternoon light, Barbra's estate is more than just a home, it's a reflection of a refined soul and a deep desire to shape the world around her. Every window, every rosebush, every wall carries her fingerprint. It's not a single mansion, but a private compound of 4 separate homes, each with its own architectural style, like movements in a symphony, spanning over 3 acres in the exclusive Point Dume area. The property is estimated to be worth over $100 million, one of the most luxurious and private personal estates along the California coast. One house is called the House of Colors, where she displays vintage collectibles, 1920s and 30s art, and period decor. Another is reserved for close friends' warm earth tones, the scent of dried lavender. One house, quietest of all, is where she reads, writes longhand letters, and remembers her parents. But the garden is her favorite. Each morning, she handpicks heirloom roses to place in crystal vases, a simple, near-sacred ritual. Nearby, A koi pond reflects an ancient fig tree where she often meditates or shares quiet moments with her husband, James Brolin. "I don't just need peace," she once said, "I need a peace that listens." Barbra avoids modern technology. In her living room, there's no television, only a turntable playing vinyl records: Billie Holiday, Edith Piaf, Judy Garland, the women who helped shape her soul. She still writes on yellow notepads, still uses a rotary phone in her study. And though she owns a fortune worth over $400 million, Barbra has never turned her life into a spectacle. As the sun sets, while many stars attend galas, Barbra might be reading about French art history or peeling a pear in the kitchen, quietly humming an old tune. Wealth didn't change her. It simply gave her the space to live as she'd always dreamed, quietly, privately, and poetically. In that home, everything has a soul not bought with money but carved through time. And just as the house reflects her spirit, Barbra's garage tells another story, a deep, nostalgic sense of beauty, revealed through the cars she chooses to drive. Unlike many Hollywood stars who flaunt high-speed supercars, Barbra treasures elegance, silence, and character. Her garage isn't flashy, no neon lights, but every car feels like a work of art. Beautiful, yes, but soulful above all. There's a black 1962 Bentley S3 Saloon. Its original cream Connolly leather interior still intact. Valued today around $200,000 in pristine condition, but for Barbra, the real worth is in memory. It's the car she drove to a tribute event for female directors in the 90s. Its rounded body, upright grille, and 6.2 LV8 engine speak not of status, but presence: "I belong here." Next to it sits something even rarer, a 1926 Rolls-Royce Phantom Y, worth between $450,000 and $600,000 today. She purchased it in the early 70s after winning the Oscar for Funny Girl, a personal gift to herself. Nearly 6 meters long, with hand-operated soft top and polished ebony wood interiors. This car once chauffeured royalty and film legends. For Barbra, it was a way to return to a timeless kind of elegance. And then, a simpler piece closest to her heart, a silver 1976 Mercedes-Benz 450 SL convertible, valued today around $25,000 to $40,000 in her early touring days. This was her main vehicle, no driver, no entourage, just Barbra, her music, a few gowns, and an open road ahead, wind in her hair, freedom at her fingertips. Even now, though she no longer drives it, the car stays covered in her garage like an old friend she never forgets. Barbra doesn't choose cars for speed, but for feeling. She values the weight of a solid car door, the quiet tick of analog gauges, the scent of aged leather. To her, a car doesn't just carry people, it carries memories, a way of life steady, thoughtful, uniquely her own. But beyond homes and cars, what makes her life truly unforgettable is the way she lives it quietly, deliberately, and always in tune with the beauty she believes in. Now in her 80s, while many step back, Barbra still rises early, not for work, but to fully experience her morning's soft music playing on vinyl, a cup of hot black tea, and handwritten notes in a leather-bound journal. For her, peace doesn't mean silence, it's the rhythm of familiar rituals, done long enough to become part of the soul. Despite her immense wealth and worldwide admiration, Barbra doesn't chase attention. She skips Oscar after-parties, avoids the Hollywood social circuit. She chooses stillness, privacy, and space to breathe. Her afternoons often unfold in the backyard garden where birdsong and ocean breeze serve as her soundtrack. She might spend hours arranging roses or adjusting the placement of a small statue. These quiet details are her way of staying grounded, far from the blinding lights of fame. To Barbra, family is her quiet anchor. She's been married to James Brolin since 1998, a steady, private union rarely mentioned in tabloids, with her son Jason Gould. She's always been a protective, respectful mother, valuing privacy and treating him as an equal. In a world of flash and noise, she's kept her home real, not perfect, but true. Barbra is also a woman of conviction, believing in justice, in art, in the power of integrity. She doesn't hesitate to use her voice, speaking out against injustice, protecting the environment, and donating millions to medical research, education, and women's rights. But she does it her way quietly, consistently, without seeking the spotlight. Some people use the spotlight to cover emptiness. Barbra Streisand uses her inner light to illuminate the values she holds dear. Whether she's in a $100 million estate or on stage before thousands, what sets Streisand apart isn't what she has. It's how she lives with privacy and freedom, with grace and unwavering purpose. It's not the spotlight that tests a star, it's the cracks in the soul. For Barbra Streisand, the higher her fame soared, the more intense the scrutiny became. She wasn't just a legendary voice, she was a strong, independent, intelligent woman who insisted on full control over her career. And that alone was enough for critics to label her with harsh words: difficult, power-hungry, overly ambitious. The media didn't know what to make of a woman like Barbra, and they weren't quick to forgive her for being unapologetically herself. In 1983, she directed and self-funded Yentl, a deeply personal story about a young Jewish woman who disguises herself as a man to pursue knowledge. Hollywood wasn't interested. Major studios turned it down. Male directors openly dismissed the idea, saying, "Women don't make films like that." Barbra used her own money to bring it to life. And when the film was released, she didn't just prove them wrong, she became the first woman to win the Golden Globe for Best Director. Even today, that honor remains rare for women in Hollywood. But not all wounds came from her career. Her personal life often became tabloid fodder. Her first marriage to actor Elliott Gould quietly ended in 1971 after years of private strain. In the years that followed, Barbra entered a long relationship with producer John Peters, a partner during her peak years, but also a source of controversy over creative control. Then came the highly publicized romance with tennis star Andre Agassi, nearly 30 years her junior. The paparazzi followed them relentlessly every dinner, every trip, every hand held. In one rare interview, Barbra simply smiled and said, "I don't fall in love with age, I fall in love with intelligence." But perhaps her greatest challenge was something few expected: a fear of the stage. In 1967, during a major concert, Barbra forgot the lyrics mid-performance right in front of thousands. From that moment on, she battled stage fright for years. At one point, she even declared she would never sing live again. But at age 60, she returned, standing in front of tens of thousands on tour, as if fear had never existed, not for fame, but because she refused to let fear dictate her life again. Some choose silence to avoid conflict. Barbra chose to face it, even if it meant standing alone. Misunderstood, criticized, and pushed outside the mold of the agreeable woman, Barbra never stopped moving forward. Not because she was never hurt, but because she knew it takes real strength to live as your true self in a world that doesn't always welcome that kind of truth. To Barbra Streisand, legacy isn't measured by awards, it's measured by the lives touched through her music, her mind, and her courage. Though she no longer stands under the spotlight every night, Barbra Streisand has never stopped creating. She writes, produces, and continues to release thoughtful musical projects. Her 2018 album, Walls, wasn't just a collection of songs, it was the voice of a woman who refuses to stay silent in the face of injustice, even well into her 70s. But perhaps her greatest legacy doesn't lie in her art, it lies in what she's given. Through the Streisand Foundation, she has donated over $16 million to social causes, from environmental protection and women's rights to healthcare and education. In particular, she has championed women's heart health, an often overlooked issue, investing more than $10 million to reshape how America understands cardiovascular disease in women. Barbra has never turned charity into a publicity campaign. She acts quietly, as part of a lifelong sense of responsibility. In moments of crisis, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the war in Ukraine, she didn't make grand statements, but the support arrived on time and where it was needed. For Barbra, family is a deeply private yet enduring value. Over 25 years of marriage to actor James Brolin has been a steady relationship free from spectacle, rooted like an old tree. With her son, Jason Gould, she's never imposed expectations. She loves him by being present, quietly and unconditionally. When asked about her philosophy of life, she once said, "I was born to sing, to tell stories, and to make a difference. If I stop believing in that, I'm no longer myself." Barbara's journey isn't just the path of a star, it's proof that a woman, no matter how different, how often dismissed, or how far from the norm, can rewrite what success means, with talent, with strength, and with a heart unafraid of being hurt. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be brave enough to be yourself. And you, what dream are you still holding on to, no matter your age? Barbra Streisand has spent a lifetime proving that when a voice comes from the heart, it can open doors thought to be forever closed. But what makes her a true icon isn't just the awards, the estates, or the vintage cars, it's her unwavering belief in what's right, even when it means standing alone. If this story reminded you of a dream you once had or simply gave you a little more faith in yourself, feel free to share in the comments. And if you appreciate heartfelt journeys like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we explore more lives lived not just to be remembered, but to truly matter.